broken promises, shattered relationships, and the destruction of an entire region's economic vitality. That is the backdrop upon which my childhood was predicated. So Toastmaster, my fellow Toastmasters, and weary travelers everywhere, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania in the 1970s and 1980s, during a time when the word opportunity started to sound a lot like a cuss word. So I grew up in two parts of Western Pennsylvania. My mom's parents were from a little town called Monongahela, 22 miles south of Pittsburgh. At one time, it was a thriving community built on the rich coal veins that ran just under its surface, and the beautiful Monongahela River that served as a conduit to connect Western Pennsylvania to Eastern Ohio, and eventually the Mississippi River. And on the other side, my father's family was from Mount Lebanon, a richer, aristocratic type area that was white collar, that was founded on the principles of hard work, money, and money. Between those two worlds, I found when the steel mills closed, the coal mines went away, and the people left. The city itself proved that if you do not bridge the gap between what you do and what you say, you will never be able to get out of your own way. The same thing happened all through Western Pennsylvania and Eastern Ohio during the 70s and 80s. In Monongahela, they learned that they could not be saddled by high costs of labor contracts that made their steel unbuyable on the open market. They realized that they could not automate at the prices that they needed to be able to sell their steel at. And they learned that once you stop selling steel, you stop mining coal. My grandparents grew up in Western Pennsylvania. They grew up and lived on top of a coal mine. So my entire life was spent living in a coal mine. I thought that it was fun to go into the mines and mine coal myself as a 4-year-old and bring it piece by piece to my grandparents. I thought that was just what everybody did. But when it went away, so did the fun. In Pittsburgh, in Mount Lebanon, it was inhabited by all of the executives of the coal mines and the steel mills that employed everybody through the region. At the beginning of the 1970s, the only cities that had more Fortune 500 companies based in their cities were New York and Detroit. Pittsburgh had the third most Fortune 500 companies based in it, anywhere in the country. And then Koppers closed. J&L Steel closed. U.S. Steel shut down many of its operations. The mines closed. And all of those executives, they all lost their high-paying jobs and the prestige that went along with it. Now, the two communities could have reacted in many different ways, and they showed two very different thoughts of how to fix something. In Monongahela, they got mad. They got angry. And they vented their frustration on any white-collar American that they could find. And if they couldn't find a white-collar American, then you had better not be an immigrant who lived in that area, because it was your fault that they were unemployed. Their mayor took up a case to try to rid the area of everyone that they thought had caused their economic collapse. It wasn't about solutions, it was about blame. They were angry. To this day, they are still angry. But in Pittsburgh, Mayor Richard Caligiuri and Governor Dick Thornburg set about a different path. They were just as angry, but they knew that anger wasn't going to solve the problem. So instead of spitting rhetoric about how it was somebody else's fault, they came up with solutions. And they led the transition of Pittsburgh from the blue-collar city that it had been to the technological hub that it is today. Carnegie Mellon University, the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, and all of the pharmaceutical companies that used to call the coast home now reside on the three rivers of Pittsburgh. They gave Pittsburgh a chance to be reborn into a new image. And how did they do it? How did they create such different and dichotomous examples of how to react to a situation? Well, in Monongahela, their lack of sagacity proved that anger doesn't solve problems. You can yell all you want, but without a solution, it doesn't get you anywhere. All it does is build a divide between the people you need to solve the problems with and the people who have the solutions. In Pittsburgh, the sagacity that they displayed brought the community together. There are just as many blue-collar Pittsburghers that live there today as there did when I was a kid. But those blue-collar Pittsburghers no longer go to work in mills and mines. They go to work in drug factories. They're not drug dealers, but they make pharmaceuticals. They go to work in computer labs. They go to work for Google. They created a different type of atmosphere. The bigger the gap that exists between what you do and what you say determines if you can get out of your own way. My family still lives in Monongahela. They will never leave, and they will never gain the prosperity that they could have had they just moved 22 miles north to the city of Pittsburgh. The folks that live in the city of Pittsburgh, many of us left. There's an entire generation that doesn't live in Pittsburgh. Ron and I are in that generation. Because we knew that at the time that it was transitioning between what it was and what it could be, that it wasn't the right thing for us. But our families still live there. My dad's family still lives in Mount Lebanon. And my cousins now work in high-tech jobs. When you are faced with a challenge, you have a choice. You can either get mad or you can create a solution. Just make sure you bridge that gap between what you do and what you say, or you will never get out of your own way. Just toast my hand.